Welcome to the Relationship Rehab Podcast. I'm Sammy, a certified breakup and relationship coach, attachment specialist, former love addict, and spiritual junkie. This podcast is for you, the hopeless romantic who loves to love, and a safe space for us to explore and heal our attachment trauma, broken hearts, and love addictions. Together, we are on a mission to become the love of our own lives so we can have successful, healthy, secure relationships with others. So if you're ready to create a life and love beyond your wildest desires, you're in the right place. Your journey towards becoming more secure in love and life starts now. Hello, my loves, and welcome back to the podcast. In today's episode, I want to look at situationships. Something that is becoming so common in today's modern dating world. And we're going to look at what they actually are. What is a situationship? And why they are becoming so common in today's society. And how the different attachment styles operate in the realms of a situationship as well. And why it hurts so much. You might be feeling a lot of pain right now if you are going through or healing from a situationship. And we'll talk about why that is and then how to move on. Some tips and strategies and practices for you to implement to support your healing journey moving from these types of relationships. And it's my intention today, when we talk about situationships, the complexities of these dynamics, is to remove any shame that you're feeling around this. We may feel like we have set ourselves up to be able to have this dream of a relationship, and it has come crashing down, and we're feeling just a lot of heaviness around that, around the what ifs, about something not blossoming into something that you've really, really wanted. You might be feeling some type of way towards yourself, and to remove any doubt that you're having about yourself, your self-worth and your value, and to validate your pain and your emotions and all the things that are coming up for you right now as we talk about these complexities. And throughout the episode as well, I'm going to be drawing upon a lot of my own personal experience. I have been in my fair share of situationships, but also a lot of my client experiences as well, because what I find is a lot of my clients come to me after being in a situationship and trying to move on and heal from that. And that's the thing about these types of relationships. And again, I'm going to get into the detail, but they can be very transformative. They can really take you to the bottom of the barrel and really invite you to look at everything as to what led you to that space, what needs to be paid attention to, and it can really be that catalyst of growth and evolution for you. And it definitely was for me in my life as well. And you're going to hear a little bit more about that in the episode. Okay, so a situationship. Everybody has their own definitions of what this is, but it's basically a situation, right? It's a situation that is like a gray area between casual dating and a committed relationship. It feels like a relationship. Maybe it's this very high, intense, 1 month crazy experience, or it could be something that has been dragged on for nearly a year, maybe even more, and no commitment, no signs of this person wanting to move forward with you has come up to the surface. So there's no black and white when it comes to what a situationship looks like. It looks different for everybody. It, like I said, it may be that high intensive love bombing situation, or it could be something where you're kept a secret as well. It could be something that where you do everything together. You meet the friends and the family, but there's no label of boyfriend and girlfriend. Maybe they're even gaslighting you into thinking that you don't need a label. There's no promise of commitment, no action. Or there is a promise of commitment, but no action. Maybe there's someone saying that their life is just complicated right now, and please be patient. I just need to sort this out and I need to sort that out. Then we can be together. And then a year and a half, it's still the same. And you're left in a space feeling really confused and frustrated. You have these certain expectations that you might have of this person and the relationship and where it's going, and it's just going unmet. You might be having unmet needs and you're just catering to theirs. And it's usually in a situationship, the dynamic is usually one person desiring more clarity and connection than the other person. So, like I said, I have been through my own journeys in situationships. And what I can say about these experiences is they can be very emotionally intense and exhausting and draining. And it can literally go from like 1 minute you think you found your person and you're doing life together and everything's great. And then all of a sudden, they go distant, they pull away, they say something that really gives you that emotional whiplash. It's like, and everything's kind of shatters around you, the dreams, the visions, the ideas, the fantasies, the potential. And that's why it can be so excruciatingly painful. So, for example, I've had two prominent situationships in my life, and I'm going to address them as we talk about these different topics. But one was very much a very high intensity, infatuated experience that lasted for a total of 4 months. And we went from like 0 to 1,000 within the week. Everything was happening all at once, and everything just felt so incredible. It was like I was living in a dream, and I was so afraid to wake up. I felt so high on life. Everything was just felt like ecstasy. And my biggest mistake in that situationship was I mistook infatuation and intensity for intimacy. I didn't know this person. I just didn't know him, but I felt like I did because we were so intense together. And sometimes we can mistake that for intimacy. When looking back, the reality of the situation is it was a 4 month situationship. We never went any further than that. I didn't really know him, not really to the depth of really knowing a person if you were in a relationship with them. It was all quite surface level. It was a lot of sex and intensive motions and visions and fantasies, really. Not so much vulnerability or safety or rawness that comes with the developing into a relationship. And then I had another situationship where it went on for nearly a year. And it was very much started off at the point where we were, dating, taking it slow, wonderful, figuring each other out, blah, blah, blah. But then what I noticed as time went on was I was ready to move forward and be with this person on the next level in a relationship. And he wasn't. But he was putting me off. He kept telling me things like, oh, let's just go with the flow. I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready for a relationship. I've just come out of a relationship, but I still want to hang out with you. I still want to do things with you. I really enjoy your company. I really care about you. And these are the type of the things that they can say to keep us dangling on that string, if you will, to keep us living in that hope that eventually they will be ready, that eventually they will take that next step with you. And then I started to realize that that next step was never going to come because he wanted the quote unquote relationship without the strings attached. And there was a part of me that's like, maybe I could just go along with this. It's better than not having him at all, right? I can just go along with it. And I can pretend that we're in a relationship and just tell myself that. But then comes those things like he would make plans without me, and he would go somewhere without saying anything, and that would be my reality check that we are not in a relationship, and I would get so hurt and resentful over that. And I just kept having these small reality checks. Then one day I realized the ball dropped, and I'm like, this is not going anywhere. I am abandoning myself every time I choose this, which is every single minute of every single day. I'm abandoning myself by choosing this. And I really had to get real with myself and honest with myself and take that step to break it off, because I knew that I deserved more. So, and we have other situationships. Like, I have another client right now who has been in a situationship for a year and a half with a guy who doesn't have his shit together. And he keeps fobbing her off, saying, I just need to, get my business to a certain place. I just need to sort this out with my family. I just need to get this right in my life. And then, and only then, can I have you in my life. No, it doesn't work like that. And maybe that's his limiting belief that he was holding, that he needed to be a certain way in life in order to be able to have a woman. And, not going into that. But for her experience was literally, she was sitting in that waiting room, waiting for him to step up. She didn't really care about all him getting his ducks in a row in his life. She wanted him and she wanted to build with him. But he was so scared to take that next step with her. So whatever you're going through, just know that it's your experience, and the complexities that come with it is your story, is your experience. But there are some certain things that we all can relate to. So let's talk about why we tend to get stuck in these dynamics. And I'm going to bring a little bit of attachment theory into this as well, because what we normally see is the anxious attachment and the avoidant attachment individuals getting stuck in this loop. Because the thing is, the securely attached people, they act on what they know they want. So if they know they want a loving, committed relationship that makes them feel safe, that gives them clarity, they will go after that. And anything that doesn't align with what they want and value, they are very good at dropping it. They're very good at moving away from it. They know that what they want, they deserve, and they will get. There's this knowingness that I will get this. If you can't step up to the table, like I'm stepping up to the table, right? Because it's a two-way street here. It's a two-person game. I'm stepping up in this way, but you're not stepping up and meeting me here. This isn't going to work. And it's as simple as that. They have no problem ending it. They wish them all the best. They set the boundaries. They move on. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't hurt or it doesn't disappoint them or doesn't make them feel any certain way, but they don't get stuck in it. They get themselves out of the loop, out of the dance quickly before it goes any further, and they get even more trapped, which is what we see with the anxious and the avoidant, right? Because the anxious person, they get quickly attached very quickly. I see this in myself and my clients a lot. I remember seeing him, and all of a sudden I'm having thoughts like, oh my God, this is love at first sight, right? Thank you to the movies that made us believe that this is what love is, where your eyes meet across the dance floor and that's it, you found your person. And I was telling myself these stories that I had found my person. I hadn't even talked to this guy at this point, and I thought that I'd found the one. So already we were forming these very, very quick attachments. Already our body is being flooded with those love chemicals of cortisol and dopamine and serotonin, and it just feels so good. And they can be very addictive chemicals as well. And then we can start to fantasize, and we can start to think about, oh my gosh, what would life be like with this person? And it goes on, it's the daydreams as well. And the thing is with the subconscious mind is it doesn't know the difference between our thoughts and our reality. And that's why our thoughts create our reality, because in the subconscious level, there is no difference. So if we are constantly dreaming about this person and we're having a life with them and getting married to them and what are our kids going to be like, our subconscious thinks that's all happening. So then when we open our eyes and come back to the reality of the situation, it's like, well, where's that vision gone? And that can cause a lot of the intensive emotions and attachment that we can feel as well. We might be in a state of hoping, really, 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 really hoping that this person is the one, because I'm so tired of dating. I'm so sick of meeting shitty men or shitty women. I really want this to be it. I'm done. I'm tired. And we put all our eggs in that basket, and we're really hoping that this goes somewhere. And we are then shifting ourselves into that energy of desperation and lack, thinking that this person is everything. Oh my gosh, what a rare find. They're ticking all my boxes. This must be the one. So then with all this in combination, we then put them on that pedestal. And by putting them on that pedestal, we are putting ourselves down. And we usually find with situationships, I come across this, call it a meme on social media, where someone says, oh, I'm in a situationship. And then the other person responding, oh, which one are you? Are you the one with the lack of commitment or the lack of self-worth? Oh, I was like, damn. Oh, wow. That encompasses what a situationship can be like, right? So our self-worth is in jeopardy here when we continue to entertain these things. So what's going on with the avoidant then when all of this is happening, right? Again, not a black and white answer, but in my experience and in my line of work, what I see a lot of the time is sometimes they really like you. They really want to be with you, but they're so afraid of it as well. They're so afraid of taking that next step. They're so afraid of that commitment. Now, this is not an invitation to now go and be like, oh, bless. No, because they are going to keep you in that state because it suits them, because it makes them feel comfortable. So we are no longer doing that. We are no longer making ourselves uncomfortable to make someone else comfortable. Relationships are about uncomfortability and growth. And if you're with someone who's not willing to do that, right? I'm not saying don't be with someone who's afraid, of course, but if they are not willing to really face their fears and get uncomfortable, then there is no way really for any progress in that relationship. And that goes for us as well, right? Like we need to be able to step outside our comfort box. So it might be that situation where they really like you, but they're fearing commitment. Why else could it be? Why else is it so common, especially in the more avoidantly attached individuals? So we see with the avoidance that their biggest fear is intimacy. Commitment equals intimacy. So they will not take that step further, or they might, but they might get around it some way. Like with one of my situations, he was kind of like, yeah, we're together. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. What does that mean? And there was just such a lack of clarity. He's like, well, yeah, we're together, right? We're just doing things together. And I say, yeah, but I was a bit afraid at that point then to really start to clarify what that meant, because I knew deep down that we would not be kind of moving into that space. And then came the doubt, right? And the second guessing, like, why do I need the labels? Why do I need to be his girlfriend? And then I was shaming myself in that space, like, oh, maybe I don't need the labels. Maybe I'm just being really needy and silly for wanting this. And we kind of gaslight ourselves then in that moment. So fear of intimacy / commitment could be one. And what other things why it's so common is what we normally find with avoidance, or people that just like casual dating but not commitment, is they getting their needs met in some way, right? That's why we are in relationship with another people. It is an exchange. We're getting our needs met, and that is more than enough for them. They have no intention to commit. So their needs could be sex. They're getting all the sex they need. They're getting all the attention and the affection from you. And that's why they're so attracted to the anxious, right? Because we are so nurturing. We're so nurturing and loving and caring and soft. And we want to give them all the love. We're pouring our whole selves into this person, and they're just lapping it up. They're like, yeah, this is nice. I like being in this space, but I don't want to go any further with this though. I just want it to stay like this. So they're getting all their needs met. They're getting their validation met. Maybe they're getting validated by you in some way. Their ego is getting massaged in some way, that they can have you in their life, but on their terms. And they feel good about that you're just going along with it and accepting whatever they decide is the dynamic between you two. Another, this is quite sad one actually, but a very real one that's happening in our modern world right now is, with the apps and everything and everyone being so available. Unfortunately, and this is something that I've had to hear from male clients of mine more than women, is they sometimes entertain situationships and don't progress with that certain person because they want to see if there's better out there. Now, that is so sad to say, but it is the reality for a lot of people. I'm not saying everyone, but for a lot of people, they seem to have this belief that there's better out there and they want to just wait to see. And this is the consequence of dating apps and having so much choice and so much availability. When you think about it, back in the day, you would meet someone in your village or you get introduced to someone by a family member, and that's it. You just make that decision to build something with that person. But now we've got online dating. Everybody is at our fingertips. We're just swiping left and right, like as if we're doing online shopping. So a lot of people are in that space, and I'm quite sad for those people because they're always going to be chasing for more. They are never going to feel content. So I want to see if I can flip that script for you, if this is something that's triggering you right now, right? Because they will never feel content. A lot of these people start to get older and they will realize that they have been chasing something that is not there. They may be because they don't want to invest fully for whatever reason that is. Sometimes, like my client, they will say that they've got complicated lives in some way. Maybe they're going through a messy divorce or separation, or they've got children, or there's some complexities in our lives that they are now using as an excuse, right? I travel a lot. I live in Thailand. Sometimes we hear a lot here in the community that, well, we live on different parts of the world, which is fine, but let's make a decision whether we're going to make it work together or we go our separate ways. Let's not stay in this gray area where everyone's confused about what to do. So it's like we take these messy complexities of normal lives, really, and we overcomplicate them. And we use them as excuses when the reality is, if you want to make it work with someone, if you want to build something with someone, you will embrace those complexities and still invest and make it a priority, make the effort to build something with this person as well. Maybe there's a waiting period, I'm not saying, right? Maybe there is a waiting period, but how long are you prepared to wait? That's the question you need to ask yourself. I'm interrupting this episode to ask you a question. Have you taken our relationship archetype quiz yet? If you haven't and you want to know more about your attachment style, this is the quiz for you. All you have to do is answer 10 simple questions, and that will take you to your result to find out what archetype you are, whether you're the mountain, the wind, the sun, or the ocean. So to get started for free, click the link in the show notes below, and don't forget to let me know what archetype you are as well. All right, let's get back to the episode. So these people, they're keeping you at a distance, at arm's length, for whatever reason. It doesn't even matter, but there's some insights, right, as to what could be happening. So the dance itself, the situationship dance itself between the anxious and the avoidant, basically goes like something like this. And this is what traps us in these situations. So like I said, the more anxious individual, they crave deeper connection and commitment, right? We're in. We're full feet in. We're in, and we've got the vision, we've got the plan, we've got the ideas, we're ready to go. But the avoidant, they may have 1 foot in, 1 foot out, or maybe even 2 feet out and an arm in. But they just want to go with the flow. They just want to see how things go. Let's not put labels on us. I just, don't pressure me. I don't want no drama. And then we then get into an anxious state where we're like, oh, okay, no, that's totally fine. Yeah, whatever you need, or whatever feels comfortable for you. And sometimes we can get into this agreeable state because we don't want to lose them. We gaslight ourselves into thinking that they just need time. As long as we play it cool, as long as we're chill, they'll make things happen. They just need to get to know us more. They just need to really see how amazing we are. And then we fall into these proving and pleasing behaviors where we just think, if they can just see how amazing we are, they will commit to me. They must. They have to. So let me just keep working at this. Let me just keep pouring myself into this person so they'll love me. But we're just in the waiting room, my love. We're either on the waiting room or we're dangling on a string. And all this time we are abandoning in ourselves and what we want and what we deserve. And then we start the kind of the push-pull dynamics, right? And then we may have a moment of like, no, I'm not putting up with this anymore. I'm done. I'm taking back my power. I'm going to pull back. So we pull back. We feel good about that. But what usually happens with the more avoidant individual then is they will lean in. They will lean in. No, I don't want to lose you. Okay, let's, just do something let's talk about it again, blah, blah, blah. They'll do something that's more of a lean in energy. And you know what? Sometimes it could just be texting you, what's up? Everything okay? And we take that as a sign that they will still want to work on it, that there's hope still there, fresh hope, and we fall back into it, back into this dynamic of push and pull. And what tend to happen from that space is we go back to them. We just want to feel loved. We want to be able to be held by them. It's better than not being with them at all. Maybe if we just keep having sex and we just continue what we're doing, it feels better than having nothing at all. It's better than being alone, right? And it always goes back to that space with the more anxious individual of like not wanting to be alone, fearing being alone, fearing abandonment. So I'm going to do all that it takes to not get to that space. And sometimes we find, I know I did this in my past, where we just don't say anything at all. We don't even have the conversation about how we're moving forward because we're so afraid. We know deep down what the answer is and we don't want to hear it. And we'd rather stay in these complex highs and lows, push and pulls, because it's better than nothing. And then all those crazy feel-good chemicals come back in and they go into explosion mode and everything feels right in the world again. And we almost like disillusion ourselves that everything is fine and we're just back to quote unquote normal until they get all avoidant and they pull away again and they create distance. Or they say something like, I'm going to go away on a vacation by myself. And we're like, and then all those things will start to creep in again. And we're left feeling empty, lonely, confused about everything. And the loop just starts again. So that's an insight into what these dynamics can flow like, especially with an anxious and avoidant. And I'm going to talk about how we can get out of this a little bit later in the episode. But just touching upon the more fearful avoidant individual, because I don't want to leave these out either. So just very quickly, what would usually happen with a fearful avoidant and why they don't typically get trapped in these dynamics. They do, like I'm saying, it's not everything's black and white. They do. But what normally happens is they might agree at first to go along with a situation and they fall into those proving and pleasing behaviors. But then quite quickly, they will realize that the power dynamic of the relationship has shifted. And then they will then go into their avoidant and they'll push them away and reject that person because they feel rejected. So now I need to reject you. So there's like this power play going on for the fearful avoidance. So they do this to balance out that dynamic within the connection. So therefore then they would agree and then quickly leave these types of situationships. All right. So let's talk about why it hurts so much. I hear this a lot. And again, also experienced it. And a lot of my clients come to me because it can be so much more difficult to get over a situationship, like a 4-month situationship in my case, than an 8-year long-term relationship or marriage. And let's have a look at why this is. It took me a whole year to recover from this 4-month situationship, right? And when you think about it, in a long-term relationship, what usually occurs is there's been some time past. You've had a very long experience with each other. You've known each other on a deeper level. Maybe there's been some elements of really trying to work on things. You've exhausted all your energy and resources on making it work with this person. I'm not saying every time, but maybe this is how it's going to go. And you've just come to that conclusion that the relationship needs to end. And there's just a longer period of time where the emotional detach would start to happen and the conversations are happening, the closure is happening. So by the time it eventually ends, all of this has already happened. So it's a more of a slower paced ending. Whereas a situationship can literally go from the most high, intense, drug-like feeling to the crashing, burning, like shattering experience that we've had. So it feels unfinished in that regard, where it just kind of everything is switched and done a 360 overnight. And it's ending right at the peak where all those chemicals and hormones are being released for attachment and love, and they're at an all-time high in your system. So that's why we would then experience those intense withdrawal symptoms for this person. And we had ideas and visions and plans for this person in our relationship. And we just got so caught up in the potential. And now we find ourselves like, that's all gone. And we're ruminating like, what could have been? What if I did this differently? What if that happened differently? And we get so caught up in those stories and narratives and spirals. And maybe an element of our brain, our now addicted brain to the chemicals that we've been feeling in the body, is trying their hardest to cling on to that excitement. And we've gone completely cold turkey, and we know this with addiction, right? That it will try its damn hardest to get a fix. And that's why it's important to really, really put a support system in place for yourself, that you don't give in to those withdrawal symptoms. Because my gosh, it can be so intense, so painful. And what I discovered in my own journey as to why it felt so painful, not only because I really wanted it to go a certain way and it didn't go that way, or because I had a vision, or because I felt lonely, or because I just really didn't want to lose, this person and what they represented, but I felt like a failure. I felt like I failed, like I did something wrong, and this was my fault. And, if you're anything like me, we are ambitious type A girlies, and we fear failure in a way. We are very much in control of other aspects of our lives, right? Our career, ourselves, our fitness, our money. But then when it comes to relationships, there's this element with another person. So when everything else in our life seems to be going well, but our love life is just this crash and burn, what the hell is going wrong? I'm a failure in this. I failed. And it's like this heavy word of failure. But the most hurtful thing about a situationship, the most prominent thing that's bringing in a lot of that emotional pain and despair and grief, is the feeling of not being fully chosen. The thing with a situationship is we have gotten so far with this person, and they have decided for whatever reason, or we have decided to end it there, but they have decided to not take it to the next level. And that frickin' hurts. And now we have started to give ourselves these stories of, it must be because I'm not lovable enough. It must be because I'm not enough. It must be because of this. It must be because of that. And we start to internalize the experience in this way, that it must be something wrong with us. That's why they didn't choose. We can't be valuable enough for this really valuable person. And then we feel rejected and a failure and not enough and abandoned. And that is such a painful space to be. Another reason is we put them on that pedestal. We talk about the pedestal a lot here on this podcast because it's very much there when we're especially in these dynamics. And, sometimes we feel like we have met this incredible person who is everything. And they quickly become our world. They would quickly become, the center of our universe. And we're so preoccupied and obsessed with this person, but usually it's their potential and the idea that we have of them. But we put them on the pedestal. And when we do that, we lower ourselves and our self-worth. And when they give us attention, it feels so good in the moment because we feel special that this person who could have they pick up the bunch is showing us attention, is choosing us in the moment. It feels really good. Sometimes we are then clinging to them because we feel like they haven't given the relationship a chance. If you could just see more of me and who I am and how amazing I can be, then you will choose me. And we'll start to chase. They start to get into this chasing energy. Just spend more time with me and you'll see how amazing I am. And then another reason why it might be so painful moving on from it is because we're craving closure. What I noticed in that first situationship example I gave you guys was it ended so suddenly that I didn't feel like it ended at all. And yes, we had a conversation, but not really. There was no conscious uncoupling. There was no closure there. And I was yearning for that. I was craving for that. And what was manifesting from that was behaviors like trying to reach out to him and trying to have conversations with him, but he wasn't interested. He's like, just don't bother me, I'm done. But this left me in such a space of needing closure. And sometimes I had to get real with myself. Am I needing closure or am I needing attention from him? Because the truth of reality is, closure is an internal experience. We are able to give ourselves that closure. And I'm going to tell you a little bit how you can start to do that towards the end now as well. But our brain is in overdrive at this point when we have been ghosted or left very, very suddenly. And we make up stories and we internalize the experience, make it something about us rather than the issue itself. So the closure experience can really bring that reality into that as well. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about how to move on from a situationship. So you might be in one already, feeling a little bit stuck. How can I get out of it? Or how can I start to decipher whether this is a situationship and not going any further into a relationship? Or maybe you are in this space of healing from something so intense and you are wanting to navigate those withdrawal symptoms and move on with your life. So I want you to remember the whole concept of a situationship, right? And you might be attracted to situationships, to this push and pull dynamic, to these breadcrumbs of love, to the bare minimum, because it feels familiar. Because this is reminding you of a childhood experience that you went through subconsciously. And now we are attracted to familiarity. So if you had a childhood experience where your parents made the environment feel like you were hard to love, or that you were not worthy of their attention, or your needs were not getting met in some way, that love is hard to get, that will be your internal subconscious beliefs. So when we find romantic situations that validate those beliefs, we are subconsciously attracted to that. So as you're getting started on your healing journey, and a situationship, like I said, can really be that spiritual catalyst of growth to be able to unpack your patterns and programmings, you will start to realize that you will no longer be attracted to those types of dynamics. When you start to get compassionate and curious about why you seem to fall into these spaces. And the more inner work you do to move towards that most secure attachment, you become more attracted to safety, to consistency, to clarity. It will be no problem for you to leave any situationships that are not aligned with what you know you deserve. It'll be easier to walk away. And in this space, while you're healing, it's okay to not date avoidance, right? Even conscious healing avoidance. Maybe you're realizing that it's just too challenging for you. That's great. I personally choose not to date avoidance. I don't want to live with an activated nervous system and be crippled with anxiety every day. It's no fun. I don't want to do that. Maybe that will be your choice as well. So just making that conscious choice for yourself. Okay, so there's one thing that you need to stop doing if you want to move on from this situationship. And this is going to be difficult, but it's possible, I promise you. I saw it with myself, I'm seeing it with my clients. And that is to stop romanticizing them and the connection. We can fall into this space of making them be someone more than what they actually are. We almost promote them from being a human being to like a god or a goddess. And this person is everything. They are so valuable. And they didn't choose us. That must mean that we're like trash. So we romanticize them. We romanticize the connection. We might feel like this connection was the deepest connection that we've ever had. That this person is so rare and I don't think I'm ever going to find that again. How could it not work out? It was so amazing. How can they not feel the same way? And might be baffled by this. We might be so confused. How could you not feel what I felt? And like I said, they might have or they might not have, but our experience is our own. But this can lead us into that space of romanticizing. We tend to blow up all the good things and we ruminate on all the good experiences and times that we had with this person. And that becomes the whole situationship, the whole relationship. And we forget about those moments where they made us feel anxious or scared or worried or fearful or angry or resentful. We forget about that. We forget about all the red flags that they may have showed us along the way. We've dismissed them to the corner and we amplify the good. So we need to knock them off the pedestal. And a really great way to do that is to apply reality to the situation. We can fall into these cognitive distortions of what the relationship was. When we start getting honest with ourselves and what it actually was, and this might come in time, but you can start the process now, like really start to write down the truth of the situation. What were some of the ways that they didn't show up for you? What were some of the ways that you know deep down, and I know you do, you knew deep down that this person was not compatible for you, that this person was not your person, that this would never have worked in the future? And falling into that belief that this person came into your life for a reason. They did. I'm very sure of it. They were not a waste of time, and they were not here to punish you. God was not punishing you by sending them. God was not trying to tell you that you're a worthless piece of crap by having this person in your life. There is a reason why they came. Can you see if you can lean into that truth? They were not meant to stay in your life. This person was not meant to be a life story, but they came in either to show you a lesson, and I know that can be, but it's true. People come into our lives for a reason. It could be a lesson. It could be to give you the biggest awakening of your life. And that was my experience. I went through what I went through with 4-month situationship guy. It took me a whole year to get over this guy because I was living in a fantasy land that he will come back to me, because I was almost anchoring in the mantra, what will be meant for me will not pass. But I wasn't using it in the right way. I was like, he's not going to pass me. He's going to come back. I just need to wait. I kept myself in the waiting room for so long. And then I went into a mourning period for far too long. I was mourning and grieving. And of course, there's always a time and a space to feel all the emotions, to grieve everything that needs to be grieved and felt. It's so important for integrating the experience. But then there must come a time where we say to ourselves, okay, the grieving process needs to come to an end and we need to move on with our life. And then that's when I started, towards the end of that year-long process, put those rituals and practices and things in place so I could cut the cord and move on with my life. And one of those ways is to really see the lessons and what this has taught you, so you don't repeat the same mistake again, right? And like I said, then it really put me into that space of awakening. I then was starting to really see all the patterns that came up. I started to notice, all the experiences I went through, the anxiety, the infatuation, researching about these things. Why was this happening? What was my patterning? What were my beliefs? What's coming up that really needs my attention right now? How can I go from this mourning space to a space of self-love, to pour into myself? Another one is to stop insisting that they are so special and unique and rare, the pedestal, right? Stop insisting this. They are a human being with their own shit and flaws and crap that they are dealing with. They are not, and of course everyone is special and beautiful in their own way, but they are not more special than you, my love. You are also so valuable and worthy and amazing. Stop insisting that they are any better than you. And another thing to stop doing is going back to them and trying to change their mind. Oh, if they just go on one more date with me. Oh, if we just have sex one more time. If we just spend more time together. It might feel good in the moment, but inside you are going to feel empty, because you will realize that this is a process of self-abandonment every time you go back. Nothing is going to change, and that is the harsh reality of the situation. Even if they promise it and they don't take action on it. I know words and actions need to be aligned, but actions really do speak louder than words. So see if you can detach from what they are saying and pay attention to what they are doing. And give yourself space. Set those boundaries. Pour into yourself. And I'll just leave the podcast here with saying that it starts with a decision. You need to decide for yourself of how this is going to go. Are you going to keep deciding to get trapped in this particular situationship pattern or any situationship? Or are you going to decide to take action and responsibility for yourself to heal these patterns and limiting beliefs and stories and narratives and cognitive ways of thinking and your nervous system that is pulling you back to those familiar dynamics? Are you going to decide that you are going to give yourself space to process your feelings and integrate it so you don't repeat the same mistake and you don't internalize it and leak out into your next relationship? Are you going to decide to look for the lessons and to trust the process and to really lean into the knowing and the truth that this person came into your life for a reason, to show you something? Because relationships are a mirror. Remember that. Are you going to decide that you are no longer accepting this bare minimum and breadcrumbs, that you deserve and want more? And even if you don't believe that right now in this moment, that you're going to work on believing it. Are you deciding that you are no longer going to choose relationships that is going to cause you so much anxiety that you can't focus on work and you're making you feel sick? Are you going to decide to not live in a space of hope that one day that they will change? Or are you going to take accountability for yourself and empower yourself to move on, to find that self-love and start attracting a partner, a relationship that is willing, so willing to give you everything that you deserve? But you need to believe that to be true. You need to start making those shifts to what you are available for. Start to think about that. What are you no longer available for? What are you available for? And shifting your energy into only being available for dating men or women who are also available for what you want. And be willing to do the hard things, my love. This is not easy, I know. Being brutally honest with yourself and what's happening in your experience. And I want you to know, before we say goodbye, that there is absolutely nothing wrong with you. We spoke a lot about looking for the lessons and making changes and awakening, and there's nothing intrinsically wrong with you. This is just our conditioning, our patterning, our programming. All of this can be looked at and transformed. And as long as we have that mindset, that intention to keep growing and evolving, we're always going to get better. But it comes from a space of knowing that you are worthy of all of this and you accept yourself for who you are in the moment in order to change the things that you want to change. So take the time to really integrate the experience that you've had, process all that guilt and shame, inviting in forgiveness and compassion, and really nurturing yourself, spending that time with yourself instead of seeking outside of yourself to make yourself feel better. So instead of going, into a rebound relationship or out partying every weekend or casual sex, like these things, like I said, will feel good in the moment, but it will leave you feeling so empty. Fill up your own cup and move on with your life. Take the time to process and grieve, but don't wallow. Get back out there to enjoy your life. Find your joy. Know that you are closing a chapter and opening a new one. Allow yourself to move on from this person, accepting the reality that this person is not meant to be in your life, and you do deserve a beautiful, beautiful life full of love and excitement and peace. How can you start to create that for yourself step by step? And I promise you, my love, I promise you, I have been where you're at and thinking that this is the end of the world and you're never going to feel good about yourself again, or you're never going to find someone as good as that again. Listen, trust me, you will. You are going to look back at this and it will just be an experience in another chapter in the book of your life. You might even look back and be like, what the hell was I thinking? Oh my goodness. It takes time. Give yourself that time and space. If you need any support at all, reach out. We have free communities that you can lean on. And we have coaching as well that you can step into if you are ready for that full transformation. But any way that you need support, don't hesitate to reach out and talk to people about what you're going through. Shame gets eliminated when it's shared. And share this episode. Talking about sharing, if you know a friend or someone in your world who is struggling right now with overcoming a situationship, maybe they need to hear this episode. maybe something will land for them to really help them move on and get unstuck. But thank you so much for being here. And I hope that this episode has really supported you in your healing journey. And I'll look forward to seeing you next time, where we discuss another beautiful thing with love, life, and relationships. Thank you so much for joining me on the Relationship Rehab podcast. I hope that this episode has supported you in healing, growing, and evolving out of insecure attachment and unhealthy relationship patterns and into safe, authentic love with yourself and others. If you enjoyed the episode, it would mean the absolute world to me if you would just take a second to rate and review this podcast. Every rating and review from you guys counts, as it really helps this podcast to grow so it can reach more people who need to hear this content. And don't forget to connect with me on social media. Take a screenshot of this podcast episode, share it on your IG stories, and tag me at the.relationship.rehab with your biggest takeaway from the episode. I really do love reading them. See you back here next week for another episode on the Relationship Rehab podcast.